again, BookTube. I wanted to give you an update on how my reading for People April has been going. I'm here to really just to complain, to moan, to gripe, to whine, and it is because I have just been striking out with my People April readings so far. For those of you who don't know, uh, People April is this big reading event in April that is all dedicated to uh, reading biographies, letter collections, memoirs, and it's mostly about reading about individual people. I'm sure a lot of you are participating in it. And I have tried three books, and two of them I am convinced are they're probably me. It's probably not the right time for me to be reading them. And the third one is I'm convinced is just complete ineptitude of the author. But I just wanted to give you this update. The first one that I found, or that I decided to read, was I don't have the physical copy with me, so I just printed out a picture of it. This is God's Executioner by Michal Shukra. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce his name. It is Irish Gaelic, and I know I'm spitting in the face of all my Irish ancestors, but Gaelic is a really it sounds like you're turning on a garbage disposal or you're throwing a table down the back stairs, so you have names like Michal Shukra. But anyway, this is about Oliver Cromwell's, basically his genocide of a lot of the Irish people. And I started reading this, and it was immediately an uphill battle. And I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I was struggling the entire time trying to read it. I got about 50 pages in. That's usually my threshold. I got about 50 pages in before I decided to just drop it. I think I will come back to it eventually. I think it's just that it is very academic. It is a very angry book, but it's also very academic in its sort of writing, and I think a lot of it was going over my head. There were also a lot of names to keep track of, a lot of Irish names, again, a lot of names like Michal Shukra, and for whatever reason I'm able to keep track of Russian names fine, but the Irish names I just cannot keep together. So I will come back to this eventually, but I just struck out with this. This was probably just not the right time to be reading this. And then the second one I tried is a biography of the Russian poet Anna Akhmatova. This is Anna of all the Russias. Anna of all the Russias, yeah. I always want to call it Anna of all the Russians, but it's the same thing. So this is by Elaine Feinstein. This is a biography of the Russian poet Anna Akhmatova, completely forgotten nowadays, but I was intrigued whenever Steve Donahue also had this. He held this up on one of his Hedgehog book recommendation videos, and I was really intrigued by it because you always hear about the Russian poets like Pushkin or Lermontov, or the guy Russian poets, but you never hear about even female writers in Russia. So I thought, well, I'll give this a try, but I wanted to try her. I wanted to try out her poetry first to see what it was like, and I don't know, it doesn't do anything for me. I know that might be heresy, and that a lot of people who know about her love her poetry, and you could see where I was at about 140 pages in before I decided to drop it. Again, I will come back to this, but it I just do not see where the genius is, where there's so many people who talk about this poet, talk about her being a genius, like she was considered the greatest poet of I think it's called the Silver Age of Russian literature, that sort of around the 1920s and 30s. She lived a really miserable life. As soon as you get into this book, it is just classic, classic Russian misery. Uh, she just could not really catch a break. But, and so a lot of that misery she put into her poetry. I think her most famous poem is called Requiem, which I did enjoy. It's about the great purges in the Soviet Union that Stalin had in the 1930s, and it is very haunting. Uh, but the rest of her poetry is just I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. She was part of this literary movement called I think it's called Acmeism. Basically, it was a response to the Russian symbolism poetry. It emphasized clear and concise poetry. Like you could very clearly tell what the poetry or what the stories are about. This Acmeism, and she was one of the most popular people from that time. And it was just whenever I was reading it, like I at my university library we have the complete poetry of Akhmatova, this big 2 volume edition. I think it's from Zephyr Press. Just and it's kind of cool. It's the bilingual edition, so it has the Russian on one side and the English on the other. And I combed through those editions and I tried to see what the fuss was about her poetry, but I just don't see it. It seems really plain to me. Uh, so I don't know. And reading about her life, like I think that I think that Feinstein, like she does a fine job as far as her prose, her writing, her storytelling. Like it's okay, but I wish this seems like a biography that in order to enjoy it, you have to enjoy the person's poetry. At least it seemed that way for me. And I will come back to it. I mean, it's not very long. I'm about halfway through the book, but it, it just wasn't working for me at the time. I probably toward the end of the month, I'll go back to this and try to blast through it and read it again, just to have that completism about me. But yeah, this was again. This is probably me. I'm probably one of the only people who dislikes Anna Akhmatova, so it's probably something with me. But I don't know that it. Strikeout number two. I'm batting at 0 right now. You can tell I know so much about baseball, but this third one, I am convinced is due to the ineptitude of the author. I was just foaming at the mouth, screaming the whole time I was reading it. And again, I made it 60 pages in before I decided to stop because it was just enraging me too much. I don't know why it was making me so mad, but this is called The Merchant of Venom, and it's a biography of Don Rickles, the arguably the greatest insult comedian who's ever lived. Um, I love Don Rickles. He's one of my favorites. If I were to make a Mount Rushmore of favorite comedians, he would be probably the first person on that list. Not necessarily because he was so mean, but because of how funny it was, and also like he's not like a lot of the insult comedians now. Tony Hinchcliffe being he's probably the most popular now, or I want to say Jeff Ross, is that his name? The with Don Rickles, well, for one, he didn't have to drop 50 f bombs whenever he was insulting somebody, and also, obviously, he made fun of everybody, uh, and made fun of everybody equally. But this is just well, as far as the book goes, you can see where I tapped out about 50 pages in. It's about a 300-page biography, and this is apparently the first comprehensive biography of Don Rickles, and I was really surprised because I was trying to think about a TBR for the month of April for People April, and I thought, well, I'd like to read a biography about Don Rickles. I haven't heard about anything, and this is considered the first one, and it's been lauded by critics, and so I thought, well, okay, I will I will see about this, and it just enraged me because from the start, like just the prose, it's by I don't think I said this yet. It's by Michael Seth Starr. And uh, first of all, like the pros, uh, I don't think he would ever watch this video, so I think I'm free to just bash this thing. Uh, the prose and the writing is just so flat and boring and lukewarm. It's like reading a Wikipedia article. You might as well have just read the Wikipedia article about Don Rickles if you instead of reading this. Um, but the writer also, he thinks that he's more clever than he actually is, and also like he puts quotes from anything that he cites in this. There's notes at the back of the book. You know, like a good boy, he cited his sources. But almost everything about Rickles' childhood and just his youth in general was quoted from Rickles himself, quoted from Don Rickles' his memoir, and that is a major problem because how do you know that any of it is true? As much as I love Don Rickles, his whole act was bullcrapping, was playing somebody else, and you never really knew. I don't know it. You don't. There is no edge to any of the stories in here, at least that I have read, and it makes for really boring reading. And yeah, so yeah, but all of it is the quoting is from his own memoir. So celebrities in general, you always have to worry about how much they are lying about the stories. And also, Rickles was famously he did comedy during a lot of these right at the time in Vegas whenever the organized crime was really big, and he was famously the only one of the only comedians to be afforded mob protection, which is really ironic considering how aggressive and insulting he was. Uh, but yeah, so that's one of the reasons I hated this, and also, like I said, the writer thinks he's more clever than he actually is. He tries to feign sarcasm, but it does not land at all. Um, and he tries to be Don Rickles. He tries to be funny, and it doesn't work. Writers or really anybody, if you don't have a sense of humor, if you are not funny, if you have never been told that you are funny, don't try to be funny. Um, so, I had notes here, so I wouldn't forget. Yeah, just don't try to be funny. Don Rickles does not need your help in trying to be funny. And to give you an example, there's a couple I wanted to read you. Uh, if I can find it. Yes. So, uh, just to give you an example. So this says, Rose Marie, who was later to co-star as wisecracking comedy writer Sally Rogers on The Dick Van Dyke Show, recalled that she and her husband, trumpeter Bobby Guy, were instrumental in getting Don out to the West Coast. And this is a quote. We saw him working in Florida, and I got him a job in a club in California through some friends of mine. I knew he'd either be the biggest hit or the most smashing flop, she recalled, and I'm glad I was right. He hit it. He hit it and was big. He sure did. It's stuff like that. It just completely takes you out of the reading of it because the writer has to get his thing in. And another example. So this paragraph it talks about Rickles, about his famous friendship with Frank Sinatra. And this says, Sinatra was back several nights later, this time with Lauren Bacall and their friends Elizabeth Taylor and Mike Todd. And this is a quote. Don Rickles at the Slate Brothers Cafe must be Frank Sinatra's favorite comic. Luella Parsons wrote in her column, Yes, Luella, he was. Dumb stuff like that. And then finally at the end, this talked about how Rickles, he was really one of the only people who could insult Frank Sinatra, and Sinatra would not use his goons to beat the crap out of him. And this is giving an example of a time when a comedian tried that, and Sinatra roughed him up. Um, this says Shecky Green found out the hard way. He told and retold the story of Frank saving his life one time in Las Vegas. Frank, he said, sicked the boys on Shecky over some slight, real or imagined, and they worked him over, but good, until Frank stepped in. Okay, he's had enough. And then the author says, cue the rim shot. So it's, again, I was only 60 pages into this, and little dumb one-liners like that are all over this, and it completely takes you out of it. So I will probably not come back to this. I was really disappointed because it's a definitive biography of Don Rickles. Okay, all of it is from his mouth. You don't know if any of it is true. You might as well call it Merchant of Venom, a novel. So, yeah, strikeout number 3. And so, I'm sitting here thinking of, well, do I keep going with people April? I why am I striking out with all of these biographies? And so, to have some sort of palate cleansing thing, I have been reading. I got this from my library too. I've been dipping into another Russian who I surprisingly have not read by this point, and this is Pushkin, or Alexander Pushkin, and this is a collection, a modern library edition, a really old one from like the mid 1960s, and apparently this has everything that he ever wrote: poems, prose, plays, long poems. It's got Eugene Onegin. It's got lyrics, ballads, just everything in here, and I have been loving it. I had never read Pushkin up until this point. I tried once or twice to read Eugene Onegin, but it just wasn't right for me at the time, and so I'm really fussy about poetry, but I'm absolutely loving it. And so I've been reading through this. That's been nice. And then I've also been reading the aforementioned Eugene Onegin. This is the Charles Johnston translation. I'm about through it, and I have really enjoyed it. And so I'm sure I will be making a video about this either tomorrow or sometime in the near future. But have absolutely been just enamored by this. And so the question remains, if I go back to People April, do I go back to People April? And if I do, I think I have a candidate for it. I'm thinking about this biography of Alexander Pushkin. This is a T.J. Binion. Yeah. This is a comprehensive biography of Pushkin, and when I was going through the library, the library at my university, it has a pretty good section for the Russian classics, and whenever I was looking through there, I found that Elaine Feinstein who did the Anna of All the Russians, that she did a biography of Pushkin as well, and so I asked the all-knowing Steve Donahue if it was a good biography, because I would be interested in reading it about Pushkin, and he screamed at me at the top of his lungs and said, "No, no, no, you smelly fool! That is not the one you want to read. You want to read the T.J. Binion biography." And so I wiped the blood off my face, and I looked, and this was conveniently placed right next to the Elaine Feinstein biography, and so I'm thinking about this one next. If this does not land for me, then I'm just going to drop everything and either go into April Adventures, or I'm going to jump into The Sound of May early for that music event that Steve and I are hosting. So I don't know. We'll see. So this is the next candidate. If this doesn't work, I will throw this out my window. And so, yeah, I just wanted to give you an update on my People April reading. So, let me know how yours is going, and I will see you next time.